We've got breaking news out of college basketball where Villanova head coach Jay Wright is seriously considering retiring. This according to our Matt Norlander. Wright has been privately weighing the decision for a few months and is expected to make a final decision soon. The Hall of Fame head coach won 2 national titles during his 21-year run with the Wildcats. He also won an astounding 72.5% of his games during his time at Villanova. CBS Sports insider John Rothstein reports that Fordham's Kyle Neptune is expected to be Wright's successor. Let's bring in Matt Norlander. And Matt, first off, why?
Well, I can confirm what Rothstein is reporting there. Kyle Neptune, along with George Halkavaji, who's on staff, they were both considered. The expectation is that Kyle Neptune will be the next coach. I want to be clear as we are live here. Okay, Jay Wright has actually not informed his team, his players, of this decision as we sit and speak right this second. He is scheduled to meet with them later on Wednesday night. The expectation when he meets with the team is that he will inform them that indeed he is going to retire. As to your question, why? Well, it's complicated. There are layers to this. Been told by sources that Jay Wright was seriously mulling and considering this decision for months now. He only came to this conclusion, if you want to call it that, of retirement being a very, very serious, if not likely option in March. And only a few people have known about it in recent weeks. I've been told that Jay Wright they tried to change his mind, say, can you not go for 1 more year or 2 more years? Which, frankly, I don't expect him to change his mind. But technically, right now, as we know things here, he still has the right to do that. Pun not intended there. Listen, Jay Wright has been consistent in his message as a coach about the way that he prefers to run his program, how college basketball is going. My read on this, and this is part observation, part me gleaning information from conversations with Jay Wright over the years, I think he might just be suffering from burnout at this point. I think he loves the fact that he just made another Final Four. He just made the Hall of Fame last year, and he can step away. You know, college basketball and the way that it is operating with the transfer portal, with NIL, which are very good things, nonetheless, objectively speaking, make the job more taxing for head coaches and head coaches in power conferences. And Jay Wright has nothing left to prove. As one source told me earlier in the afternoon when I was working on this story behind the scenes, you know, Jay Wright is all too thrilled and satisfied with where he's brought the Villanova program over the past decade in the Big East, making the Final Four 4 times overall, but 3 times in the past decade. You can see he's the best coach, the winningest coach in program history, 2 national championships, and has ascended to the top of the sport. He's just ready for a bit of a personal reset. He and his wife collectively came to this decision and had been discussing this for weeks. And now, one other tidbit for you. The reason why we're talking about this on a Wednesday night, this was not the initial plan. Word started to really trickle out here behind the scenes on Wednesday, and so this is Wright's way of getting ahead of it, thus the impromptu meeting that is happening on Wednesday night with his players.
So, Matt, should it come to pass, where does this leave the Villanova program?
Still in a good spot. I mean, I'm told that Jay Wright, understandably, as you would expect, in doing this, wants to he has a checklist that things, you know, certain things must be met, agreed to if I'm going to leave, because they don't want him to leave. Villanova wants Jay Wright to still continue to be that program's head coach for years and years and years. But as he's appears to be deciding to be stepping away from that duty, then with that, let's come to terms on what can happen here. Kyle Neptune, again, sources tell me Kyle Neptune is the expected pick to be the next coach. In part, he just had a great first season at Fordham, former Villanova assistant, and certainly has a very good reputation across men's college basketball. Former player at Lehigh and has really risen up through the ranks there. They will not be in a position overall as a program with as much stature by pure fact that Jay Wright is set to leave here, but it is still considered the best program in the Big East. Villanova has essentially lorded over that conference since the Big East reformed almost a decade ago, and there's no reason to believe that there's going to be some sort of significant drop-off, but certainly have to note going to be an interesting next season in men's college basketball with no Mike Krzyzewski, John Shire taking over at Duke. And then if this indeed comes to pass with Villanova, you'll have two legends of the game that are stepping away.
Yeah, that's a great point right there. Some of the name coaches, some of the longtime icons departing from the game. But we touched on some of the gaudy numbers at the outset. But can you touch on just what the immense impact he had on this program is?
You know what? Tremendous amount. Think about before he got there. He's been on the job for 2 decades. Comes from Hofstra, and there were times early in the career where in his tenure at Villanova where he doesn't think that he could even keep the job. There's some weird echoes and parallels to Wright's early days at Villanova, and if you go back 3 decades prior, Kay's early days at Duke. And to think that he brought Villanova to a spot where it was at the mountaintop. That 2018 Villanova team that he coached, if you really dig into it, that's one of like the 3 or 4 best teams we've had in men's college basketball in the past 15 years. An outright offensive machine. And in a lot of ways, Jay Wright influenced plenty of coaches with his style, not a micromanager, a lot of trust with his players on the floor. He actually got this, this thing attached to him where it's like, would Jay Wright ever leave Villanova to coach in the NBA? Because a lot of the way that he ran the Villanova program was more in the style of a pro team than necessarily the everyday grind and rigors of college basketball. But to that note, I was told by a source that, listen, in the past year or two, the way that Jay Wright has been running the program was not with the same kind of style and everyday grind that was certainly there 5, 7, 10 years ago. It was kind of drifting in this direction. It comes as a surprise nationally. I get all that. This was bubbling and percolating behind the scenes. But, man, he completely changed the reputation of that program from this, oh, yeah, they won that 85 title in Cinderella fashion, they're a Big East program, to now viable, sustained national power. And in terms of win percentage and relevance, among the 3 or 4 best over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
And again, it comes on the heels of his 4th Final Four appearance. Jay Wright seriously considering retirement. He's a CBS college basketball insider, Matt Norlander. Matt, we appreciate the insight.
Thank you.
Again, you can join Matt and Gary Parrish for all the latest news just like this and storylines around college basketball. It's the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Get it wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.